It's been a while since I've played The Last of Us video game, but I have played the game around 5 times already. What I can say about what made the game very good was not simply the zombie/apocalypse setting of the story, or the fact that you have access to makeshift weapons, learn how to be resourceful in such a volatile environment, and fight off 3 different kinds of infected throughout the video game. What made the game so good and beloved was the father and daughter aspects of the story. The prologue with Joel and Sarah trying to escape from the invasion of infected only to end with the tragic death of Sarah in Joel's arms was the major factor of the game's success. That prologue alone locked me into the story and was the inception of such an enticing experience that not only allowed me to become immersed in this frightening world of infected, but to immerse myself in the characters of the game, especially the character of Joel. I immediately felt a connection with the characters within the confines of such an innovative cinematic experience of a video game, at least in my opinion. There was no other video game that I have played in which I felt like I was in the shoe of the characters. And believe me, my favorite characters are both Arthur Morgan and John Marston from the Red Dead Redemption universe. But the outlaw life of Arthur Morgan and John Marston is just something that I could never relate on a deeper level than I could relate with Joel as a father to a daughter. When I played as Joel, I felt the sadness, the anger, the will to survive. I felt the weight of my years living in such a hellhole, and I needed the ounce of hope again that could somehow uplift me after the death of my own daughter. No other game before this has been able to give me that feeling. So when Ellie entered the fray and I was given the duty and task to be her guardian for the remainder of the game, it added the experience, and I really felt as if I had the duty to protect this girl with my own life. Eventually, I felt the father and daughter bond, the connection, despite the fact that she was the hope for the continued existence for mankind. She was the ounce of hope that I myself needed, especially after all we had endured together. I went through the game enduring not only the infecteds, but the other thugs, the faction that had their own will to survive in any means necessary. We walked into traps and saved each other countless of times. I could go on for hours with this game, but ultimately what made The Last of Us really good and a really memorable game was its immersive experience. The fact that it seamlessly placed me into the shoe of its protagonist, I felt everything that he had to endure up until the story ends. It made an experience that I can always remember. The Last of Us was not only a video game, it was an emotional experience. At its core, you shoot and fight your way through infecteds and bandits as Joel and Ellie. You follow them through all their fights and struggles through this chaotic world. You listen to their conversations and watch their interactions, and you fall in love with the father and daughter relationship they develop over the course of the game. When Joel and Ellie are happy, you're happy. When they feel pain, you feel it with them. The game just forces you to latch your feelings onto these two characters, and you find yourself just doing everything you can in your power to protect them. The Last of Us not only challenges you emotionally, but it challenges you morally as well. What makes a zombie apocalypse game so exciting is the fact that we can clearly picture ourselves in this fictional world. When push comes to shove, we ask ourselves, would I kill this person in this scenario? Would I trust this person to join my group and potentially jeopardize the people I love? If my loved ones got bitten, could I pull the trigger and end their suffering? When you play The Last of Us, you not only play the game, you live it. You see the world that's been left behind, and it just fills you with nostalgia. Visiting abandoned college dorms, vacated houses from once a happy family, a 5-star hotel now torn into shreds, a coffee shop with no more coffee in it. At one point or another, you'll find an abandoned something that will just hit home with you. What would my room look like in this world? What would my school look like? My favorite restaurants? Naughty Dog does an excellent job just painting us a picture of what it could look like. They just get every details right down to the last broken shelves and cracked windows. So, long story short, the feels, the story, the incredible attention to details, The Last of Us makes us feel something. Sounds simple, right? But very few games can achieve making its audience jump up and down the emotional spectrum within a really short time span. I'm not gonna spoil the story of the first game even if it's been out for almost a decade now, but the ending of The Last of Us will truly make you question what is right or what is wrong in this world. And once you finish playing this game and Joel and Ellie's story finally concludes, it's really bittersweet. It feels like you've lost 2 friends because you'll no longer get to go on this amazing adventure with these 2 characters. Like literally.
Now watch this drive.
Oh boy. Whether The Last of Us was good or not depends on the person that experiences the game. Naturally, this means that every person has their own reason as to why this game is good or bad. Sometimes the reasons are the same, and sometimes it may not be the same. I have completed The Last of Us Remastered twice, once on hard and once on grounded. Since you may be asking what makes this particular work of interactive media so good, and I'm gonna give you all my opinions about it. Number 1, the gameplay. Now personally, I don't like referring to The Last of Us as a video game, but to many people it's still just a video video game, and every video game has a gameplay. Instead, in my opinion, I like using the term interactive media, as I did back then, especially if the video game had such an impact on myself. Gameplay wise, I feel like it would do so well to welcome new gamers. I can't verify this because I've been a gamer for years prior to this video game, but I'm not gonna lie, it's been some time since I've played the third-person view game and I was able to get into the action without having any much problems. This aspect is especially important because, for example, if a person has never played a video game before, the person would be so pleased with not having to be troubled with an unforgiving gameplay, so you don't have to play this video game like you're playing Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Especially if the person was initially attracted to the story but not the gameplay, it would be such a smooth and pleasant process. And the next question you might be asking, what about the players who want more challenges? Well, there are different difficulties in the game. There's easy, there's normal, there's hard, there's survivor, and grounded, which I think is the optional content on the PS3 version but included in the PS4 version as well. And you can tweak them however you want, like disabling the HUD, QuickTime button prompts, and so on and so forth. So in general, The Last of Us is welcoming to the newcomers who want to get into the world of gaming and to challenge seekers who just want to improve their gaming skills. In number 2, the graphics. Back on the PS3, it has garnered very positive reviews on the graphics, which it definitely does well, especially the cutscenes. To give you a sense of how good the in-game graphics are, when you are in the game and it changes to a cutscene, the differences aren't that big and it feels quite natural. And also back on the PS3, it was around 30 FPS, but the remastered version of the PS4 is able to support frames around like 60 FPS. Sometimes it drops though, but it is mostly constant throughout the game. And you also have the option to have it in 30 FPS if you want to on the PS4 version. Although graphics is really important in any video game because it does deal with how we perceive and view the characters and their emotions. It would not have been a disaster if the graphics were slightly toned down. The strongest emphasis on this game is on the character development, and the graphics of the game serve to support the story which the developers intend to tell through the game's surroundings and also the facial expressions of the characters, which is very important in a media like this that deals so closely as to how the characters are feeling, and also the intentions of the developers to convey more messages with the characters talking less. In number 3, the music. The music offered by Gustavo in The Last of Us are all masterpieces. I really think you would love the music in The Last of Us. Why I say that? Because there are many examples throughout the game, but one thing that Gustavo has been able to constantly reproduce is the power to make the majority of the audience feel the emotion that are supposed to be felt during the game. In the end of the first chapter, where there is a really sad and heart-wrenching scene that conveys a theme that will be very important throughout the game, the music that plays behind that scene fully complements that said scene. Different people might have different reactions, but I've seen comments of people saying that they cried, and including myself. When that scene played, I got goosebumps throughout most of my upper body, and I did tear up a bit. Having myself cry is no easy task, and it only serves to complement that the power of the music and scenes of this media have done so well together. And the last thing about why I love this game is the theme. The story centers around Joel and Ellie for most of the game, along with superbly integrated supporting characters such as Sarah, Tommy, Tess, Marlene, Bill, Henry, Sam, and David. There are just so many themes in this game that I find it so hard to select one that will be able to represent the game as a whole. If I had to choose, it would be that of a person that has extremely traumatic experiences in his life and has to protect himself after these experiences by not letting himself be viewed as vulnerable emotionally and mentally. But over time, these walls that have been built up to defend himself from feeling badly hurt again will eventually be torn down by someone whom he really cares about, but strongly denies so during the earlier stages of their relationship together. I've read some reviews online and they say that the storyline of this game is nothing special, it's straightforward. Protagonist and his buddies travel through the country and fight a lot of enemies to reach their destination. But I have to disagree on that shit take, as those views are so very shallow. What transpires and unfolds throughout the game and the events that happen are so much more complex, that there are so much more than just a guy traveling through the country with his quote-unquote buddy. The Last of Us also has a lot of small but interesting important parts that adds to its value. Not everything is grand, as in the main story of the protagonist only. Emphasis is also given on the small things that you can find throughout the game. In some parts of the game, you can initiate optional conversations with your companions. Not only that, but there are quite a number of artifacts and small collectibles that you can collect throughout your exploration of the game. When you initiate optional conversations, you get the sense of what the characters are thinking at that particular moment and what they really want to convey. This makes them feel so much more human as opposed to a fictional AI in an interactive media. The collectibles are an essential part of the game to me. Most of the collectibles tell a story or convey a message. Many notes that you will find throughout the game will have titles such as Note from Frank, Note from Brother, Note from Rachel. This tells us that not only did the main protagonist have to go through this harsh and unforgiving world, world. Many other normal people had to go through the same world as well. All this comes back to the intentions of the developers to create a world that is real as it could possibly be in a really post-infectious apocalypse type of setting. In my opinion, the factors above have contributed significantly to the realization of the developers' intentions. I feel that this game has such an impact on me because of the post-apocalyptic setting and how it manages to support the themes that convey throughout The Last of Us. And that is why I love this game and why I consider this game to be one of the best video games of this generation. And I know you guys are gonna ask me, what do I think of the second game? Well, that's another story for another video that you guys are gonna have to wait for part 2 of this video. So this has been Yorinchi, and I'll see you soon on the second part of this video.